Hello. Thank you guys so much for joining today's live. I am so excited for today's bonus training. Now, I know that there are going to be a few of you who weren't able to attend the live, and that's quite all right. Of course, we do these recordings, so they're archived on the YouTube channel, so no worries. But of course, if you are joining this live training session, you are encouraged to leave comments along with questions as we progress through this training with Andrea Sager. So she is a Legalpreneur, if you're familiar with her on TikTok. And today she's going to be going over topics regarding legal. So specifically hot topics like LLC, contracts, maybe even IP, which is something that I know is discussed in the community. And a lot of the times there are a lot of questions that I receive as what is a UGC creator and mentor, and I am in no way, shape, or form fit to be able to give any advice because I'm not a lawyer. So I'm really excited to have Andrea here and bring her on. So without further ado, again, please, I encourage sending questions through the chat. And of course, if you are seeing this video after the fact, if your question was not answered, I will have a link in the description of this YouTube video that you guys can take to go to a checklist that Andrea has. But yes, let's bring her on. I'm so excited to have her here. I don't want to take up any more time. Thank you so much for being here today, Andrea. I am just so excited to have you here as an additional resource for our community. We have, I want to say, just now over 1,000 members in our Discord. And so a lot of them aren't able to join at this time during the week, but they watch the recordings. And I know that they're going to find this super, super helpful. And I already see some comments in the comment section. So again, I'm going to hand it off to you, but thank you so much for being here. And I know the community is super grateful to have you here as a resource.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. I'm super pumped to be here. I love doing these trainings. I honestly just love the education part because I know how scary it is. And I know just how intimidating it is. And I just love the education portion. So like Kelly said, there is going to be a link to our legal checklist. Get this completely free. And at the end of it, on the last page, there's also a code to get a free business audit. So the checklist really spells out all the legal stuff that you need to make sure your business is legally up and running and it's in compliance. And then the business audit is where we actually go through and dissect your business and tell you, hey, this is how this needs to be protected, or you need this for this. So the business audit really gives you the answers, and all of that is completely free. Like I said, we're huge on education over here because I just want less business owners getting in trouble from day one. And that's how this happens. So what I'm going to cover are really the three main areas of legal protection for small businesses. And that's LLCs, entities, contracts, and then intellectual property, which is trademarks and copyrights. As I'm going along, feel free to drop any questions. I want to make sure this is as beneficial as possible for you. So don't hesitate. There are no stupid questions. Feel free to drop all them here. So I know I did see a question really quick. Should UGC creators provide the contract or the brand? I am going to get into contracts in the second portion, but I will say it just depends on who's really leading the discussion. Typically, it is the brand, but if the brand does not have a contract, you should absolutely be sending them something because there should always be something in writing. But I will go over that in more detail in a little bit. First, we're going to start with entities because this is how you legally operate your business. Now, if you have not made a dime in your business, if you are just building buzz, you're getting ready to launch your business, you still need to have an official business entity. This is how you legally operate. If you have not filed any documents with your state, you are most likely a sole proprietor. This is not illegal to operate as a sole proprietor. However, there's no protection for you personally as an individual, and you want protection. You need protection because obviously the goal is to grow, scale, make good money, and be able to make this full time. So why not protect yourself from the beginning? So I always say from day one, you need to have an LLC, which is a limited liability company, and that protects you personally from the debts of your company. So if you accidentally do something in your business that causes it to get sued, they cannot come after you personally. They cannot come after your house, your car, any personal assets. They can only come after what is in the company. And that's what you want. You want to make sure you're limiting the liability, because on the other hand, if you're driving down the highway and cause a car accident, they can come after you personally. But if the business is killing it and you have a lot of assets in the business, you don't want them to be able to come after the business assets. So it works both ways. And I hear from a ton of different people, typically people in the accounting industry, or if you go to any Facebook group and you ask like, hey, should I be an sole proprietor or an LLC or an S corp or an LLC? A lot of people will say, wait for the LLC until you're making a certain amount of money. Terrible advice, because typically what people in the accounting industry mean by that is wait for that S corp election. And because I'm going to break it down, the S corp election, when people ask, should I be an LLC or an S corp? It's actually the wrong question. The ideal situation for a small business owner typically is to be an LLC taxed as an S corp. The only thing the S corp does is provide you with tax benefits. I'm not going to go into detail about what that is. Definitely an accounting thing, but I will tell you that the LLC you want from day one, because that protects you personally. But a lot of accounting people associate them as being the same thing. And you cannot make that S corp election until you are making a certain amount of money. So that's typically what they're talking about, is that tax savings. You cannot make that S corp election until you're making a certain amount of money, but you can file the LLC and still get that liability protection. And I hear from people, what if I don't have any assets that need to be protected? What if I haven't even made any money? Even if you have no assets right now, you don't have any money right now, the goal is to have assets. The goal is to make money. So you have to protect yourself now against what you may have in the future. Because let's say today's day one and you heard, oh, wait till you're making $100,000 a year to file the LLC. So you wait, and then day two comes along and you blow up on TikTok overnight. And day three comes along and you remember, oh, I'm making all this money now. Let me go file the LLC. So you do. And now you have that protection. You're good to go. However, day 100 comes along, or day 1000, whatever, somewhere down the road, you get sued for what happened on day one or day two. And even though you're an LLC at the time of the lawsuit, you were not an LLC at the time the act happened.
Wow.
So you do not get the LLC protection.
Oh, that's the first time I've ever heard that.
Yes. I'm telling you, I know how to break it down. I know how to break it down.
I'm someone else's.
Yes. So if you, because I hear it all the time, and it really irks me when I hear people in the accounting industry like, oh, don't worry about the LLC. That's actually technically legal advice, and they're not authorized to give that. So you're hearing it here first. You should be an LLC as quickly as possible to make sure you're protected now against anything you may do in the future. It really is kind of like insurance, but having that LLC also allows you to get creative with taxes, like not just the S corp. There's other things, but you have to start with that LLC. So don't wait. Get that done as soon as possible. If you have multiple businesses or multiple revenue streams, or you're kind of questioning like, hey, should I still file the LLC, or should I file a separate LLC for these two businesses? It ultimately comes down to risk. So just like you don't want to be personally liable for your company, do you want this business to be liable for this other business? If they're very related, okay. But if they're not related, if you have your UGC business, but then you also have a real estate company, two completely different risk levels, you don't want those to be associated with each other. So you absolutely want separate entities. It really just depends, if you want, it might be a one-on-one question with an attorney to really figure out what your risk tolerance is. But that's just the guidelines that I give people. It just comes down to risk and how much you're willing to tolerate. Now, for Canada, there is an LLC equivalent. I can never remember what it's called because I can never remember what it's called in Canada and Europe. I think it might be called like a limited company or a limited business, something limited. In Canada, there is an equivalent though.
Nice.
Yes, adding to your to-do list for tomorrow or whenever. Yes. And Kelly, I know Kelly has a link where Legalpreneur, we can file your LLC for you. So
Yeah.
we charge 250 plus your state filing fees. What this covers is filing it for you, getting your EIN and your operating agreement, which is everything you need to get up and running. And then you can take all those documents to your bank, get your business bank account, and you're good to go. You don't have to pay Legalpreneur. You can DIY. You can do it on your own. You just go to your state Secretary of State website, file a domestic LLC. Then once you get that approved, get your EIN, get an operating agreement, and then that should be everything that you need for your state. So if you're a DIYer, that's what you do. But if you're somebody that's like, I don't want to spend the time figuring all that out, Legalpreneur can absolutely help you.
That's awesome.
So that is entities. Well, there's partnerships. You can still have a partnership, but even if you have more than one owner, I still suggest the LLC. You can be a corporation. The only time I really suggest that is if you're going to have investors. So Legalpreneur is a corporation. We've raised money. But if you're just a small business owner, you don't plan on raising VC money or money from investors, LLC is the way to go. If you do plan on raising money, they're going to require that you have a corporation. That's why we have a corporation. So we only file in the US. We don't file in Canada.
Someone does though, Mark.
Yeah. Honestly,
someone out there.
Google, I don't know where in Canada you are, but I would just Google like your city small business attorney. There's one. Typically, there's one of me in every country. They're not as cool as me, but there's a small business attorney in every country.
There you go.
Okay, that's entities. Now contracts. This is, I know, your favorite subject for everyone here. This is everybody's most questioned, most talked about. So rule number 1 is do not be afraid to use a contract. I get it. We have all been screwed over by a contract at one point or another. Yep. Early termination fees, who didn't read the small print. I get it. We've all been there. But you are a business owner now, and you have to act like a business owner. Rule number 1 of law of attraction, manifestation, whatever you want to call it, act as if. Business owners use contracts, so use a contract. For the most part, we're all just trying to do good business. So I've never personally, and I've seen a ton of contracts, I've never encountered anyone trying to screw somebody over. Like, yes, I encounter contract issues all the time. However, nothing was malicious. So don't think that somebody's trying to just pull one over on you by giving you a contract, and don't think that your clients are going to think you're trying to pull one over. Like, make it an SOP in the business. You're a business owner. This is how we operate. I think the brand should be sending the contract because it's their campaign. It's their terms. But if they don't send one, you always want to make sure that you send them one.
So I love that you said that, because I know that's been one of the questions I've received actually, is what contracts do I personally use? And like I've said, like, yes, I do have a backup contract, but the clients that I'm working with, they always have a contract. So I'm literally, I think I've only used my contract maybe 1% of the time. And so I think that's an interesting thing to, for everyone to hear also, just because I know that when the creators hear, oh, I'm supposed to have my own contract always, that's when, even like for me as someone that sources creators, I've had to drop creators because they refuse to sign the agency's contract. And we're like, no, you have to sign mine. Or if I sign yours, you have to sign mine. And the agency has come back to me saying, who I'm like the middleman hiring the creator for the agency. And they say, but then legal's going to have to review it. And we don't have time to have them review their contract. And we don't want to like use our budget. So I love that you're reaffirming that. Obviously anticipate the brand to give you a contract, but if they don't, that's where your contract comes in handy.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime money's changing hands, or I know a lot of people will just exchange product for work, anytime value is changing hands, you need to have something in writing.
Yep.
If there is an issue, emails, DMs, those would suffice in court. However, chances are it's not going to end up in court,
Yeah.
but having a written contract just brings a level of professionalism to the relationship, and it eliminates questions. And if it does happen where there actually is a lawsuit, most states allow that if there is a written agreement, you're eligible for what's called treble damages, which means you get triple the amount of what you're owed plus attorney fees. So use a contract.
Nice. Love that.
Now, I know a lot of people have questions about, like, how should we negotiate this? Or what about this in the contract? There's a ton of things that you may want to negotiate in the contract. That's why I always suggest having a partner help you. And what I mean by a partner is either an agent, a brand manager, or an attorney that is helping you negotiate these contracts if you're not comfortable doing it on your own. And if you've never actually chatted with an agent or a brand manager or an attorney about any of negotiating these terms, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. I've seen this happen time and time again. I know some of the biggest ones are obviously exclusivity, usage, white. I keep wanting to say white labeling, white listing.
Oh, yes. There you
Uh,
go. Yeah.
white labeling is boutiques and
Yeah.
products. um, Those are the big ones, but there's still so many different points, and especially UGC contracts that can be negotiated. Um, so always have somebody available to you. We include this in our Legalpreneur membership where document review is included. So
Mm.
if you ever have contracts being sent to you or you're having to send contracts out, all that's included in your membership. Um, so And the other thing, a lot of it as a creator, especially a new creator, it is mindset. It's knowing that you can negotiate these things, knowing that, hey, even if, because I think a lot of the fear is, oh, if I push for these things or I negotiate too hard, they're going to drop me. Let them. Like,
Yeah.
you have to be so confident in your worth, knowing that, hey, this is what I'm worth. If they value what I'm providing to them, this is what they're going to pay. And if they don't value me, I don't want them to have their hands on my work anyway.
Yep.
So it's not just like coming from a lawyer, hey, legally this needs to get done. It's a lot of mindset as well. So truly knowing like, hey, this is the value that I'm bringing to this brand. If they don't want to pay it, then they don't get my value.
Absolutely. I also today, just as a side note, since we're talking about negotiation, this woman, Charlotte, who is pretty popular in the UGC community, I don't know her last name, but she's blonde and she does really well. She's now a mentor. And she gave an example of negotiating today, talking about how a brand came to her asking for, I believe it was 3 UGC videos for $750 total. And she had said, oh, unfortunately, that is, below my normal rate. However, I'd be happy to do 2 concepts at $750. And then they responded and had said, oh, actually, we can only do 600. And then she said, that she had said, oh, well, that's not within my interest, or like, it's not within like what I'm okay with. And then they responded with, okay, yeah, we'll do 2 concepts at $750. So it's very possible to negotiate. And ultimately, I'm of the belief that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And there is a way for you to get what you want. It's just a matter of conveying it to the person that you're talking to.
Yes. And this is a tip that I always give, not even just like creator clients, but any clients and even my team, is to never say no. You never want to say no.
Yep.
If you say, oh, if 3 videos at 750, that's what they want. You say, absolutely, I can do 3 videos. However, my rate for that is XYZ. It's never, no, I'm not going to do 3 videos for 750. It's absolutely, I can do 3 videos. This is the rate for that.
Yes.
So I don't want to turn this into like a negotiation video, which I could talk about that all day long, but you never want to tell them no. It's like, absolutely. And we can do any of that. And it's just, hey, we can absolutely do what we want, but this is my rate for it. Or if this is your budget, absolutely, I can work with that budget. This is what I can do for that budget. Now contracts. So I don't want to get too off track. The most important clause in any UGC contract is the IP provision. Who owns what is being created? Now, by default, whoever creates it owns it. So you as the creator, you own the video or the photo, whatever's being created. By default, unless you are an employee, if you're an employee, your employer owns whatever you create as part of your normal business routine. If you're just an independent contractor, you're a freelancer, you automatically own what you create. Now, a lot of brands want you to assign them the rights or just transfer all the rights to them. They want to own the copyright. I don't suggest this because that's your work. That a big example that a lot of people don't understand is photographers. A lot of times, we all go and get brand photos. You as the brand, you don't own those photos, even though you're paying the photographer to take them. That photographer by default owns those photos. They're only giving you permission to use those photos. So same thing, by default, you own the video. You're just giving them permission to use that video within these parameters. Now, if they want to own the video for whatever reason, typically it's because they want to be able to use the video in perpetuity. They want to do this, do that, whatever they want with it. Get to the root of why they're wanting to own the video and seeing what you can work with there. Because if they own the copyright, you're not able to reshare that. You can't even use that as in your portfolio unless you retain those rights. So there's a ton, like I'm telling you, there's a ton of different things that can be negotiated in these contracts. But another thing I want to cover, which I'm sure is talked about quite a bit, is in perpetuity. I will tell everybody and die on this hill that you should never give in perpetuity unless they're going to be paying you millions. Because if you give, and this does apply when your face can be identified. It's a little different when you cannot be identified in the video. But if you can be identified in the video, you never want to give in perpetuity. You never want to give too long of exclusivity. And the reason for never giving perpetuity is, let's say you're working with this skincare brand and you do a video on this face wash, whatever, it does really well, and they're able to use it for life. Well, guess what? You can never give exclusivity to any other skincare or makeup brand ever for the rest of your life. And if this is your first brand deal, hopefully you got paid at least $100. But I understand, like, as you're getting started, you're trying to build your portfolio. Totally understand that. But you have to be very careful when signing these first deals, because if you're so excited, and I've been there, I promise you I've been there, where you're so excited and you're like, yes, I'm signing away, and you have no idea what's even in there. But if you give them perpetuity for this, whatever you're creating, you can never give a similar brand in that industry exclusivity of any kind. And you may be breaching that contract for the rest of your life if you even try that.
That's definitely a really hot topic in the community, is like the perpetual ownership. And like ultimately, like you said, it comes down to the like final agreement, but just making sure, because like for me, like I've told my audience that I actually do give perpetual ownership, but it's under specific requirements. One, they're paying my rate, which last year, working only 10 to 15 hours a week, taking off 2 months, I made over $100,000. It's very, very few people who can say that they worked that little and still made that. But it's not raw footage. It's also with music baked in, and it's with text on screen, knowing very well that they can only do so much with that asset. And also there is no exclusivity deal where it's like, I can only work with this one brand.
Yeah.
But that said, obviously everyone is different, and it's like, very important to keep in mind, like the legal parameters.
Yeah. And if they're paying you, that's perfectly fine. What you want to avoid is giving in perpetuity for this one video that a brand paid you $100 for,
Yeah.
several years ago.
Yeah.
Ideally, what I like to see is a certain amount of time for exclusivity, a certain amount of time for usage, with flexibility to continue to extend all of that.
Yep.
That's perfect. And of course, if they want to put ad dollars behind it, they need to pay for that. You need to understand that they have to pay for every little thing. And to understand, to wrap your head around it, no matter what they're paying you, 99.99999% of the time, it is 99% less to pay you than to pay a production crew.
Yep.
And models and actresses to create something that's probably not even going to perform as well as what you create. So when you're questioning, like, oh, is this too high? They're still saving money.
Yeah, they 100% are, because you're the one-stop shop as a creator. Whereas, having to hire, like on-camera talent with limited usage, with their day rates, with a videographer, a photographer, a whole set, whatever it is, it's like you're looking at like high 5 figures, if not 6+ figures for a production.
Yeah. And Kelly, you reminded me of something, that even those actresses on screen talent, not only are they getting paid for their time to create that, they still get paid if they want to continue using the material. They're not just getting paid the one time. They're getting paid for all the usage, the continued usage. They get royalties. So when you're second guessing yourself, just remember they're still saving money by paying you everything you're asking for.
Absolutely.
Now, more other contracts. So let's say now you're growing, you have a team. Anytime, like I said, value is changing hands, you want to use a written contract. If you're working with a social media manager, if you're working with, if you hire just a VA, if you are working with anybody, always, always, always make sure there's a written contract. Now, signing contracts, obviously printing out, signing, sending it back, perfectly legal. Checking the box, a click wrap agreement, that is legal as long as the box, we've all seen it, by clicking here, I agree to the terms and conditions, that box cannot already be checked. And the terms, where it says by checking the box, I agree to the terms, they have to be clickable to go read on another page. And so we've all seen it. You click and it opens up in a separate window. So some states aren't that specific, where you doesn't have to open to another page, but I tell everybody to do that anyway, just because that's your safe harbor. As long as all those things are present, the click wrap agreement, checking to agree, perfectly legal. Now, HelloSign, DocuSign, those are all legal as well, and I actually prefer those these days because there's an audit trail. So if anybody ever wants to say, oh, I was hacked and somebody signed it for me, there's the audit trail. So the audit trail is going to be your best friend if any of that happens. And I know a lot of you aren't really taking payments, but if it gets to the point where you're coaching or you decide to sell products and you're taking, you're not just doing being a creator, you may experience chargebacks. And chargebacks are a huge issue that I deal with, not with my clients doing chargebacks on me, but my clients experiencing it with their clients. Your best friend when fighting a chargeback is a written contract, a signed contract. The click wrap agreement, like I said, it is perfectly legal. However, that's not going to help you very much in a chargeback. When you have a chargeback, what's going to help you is having that written agreement. So a lot of people will ask me like, hey, what's the dollar amount where I shouldn't use the click box and I should always use that written contract, send them a separate contract. I don't have that answer for you. It's what are you comfortable with losing if there's a chargeback? Like I have a client that makes almost $100,000 a month off of like a $10 per month subscription.
Whoa.
And so she has a ton of customers, a ton of clients. And so she's not worried about sending all of them a contract, because even if she has 10% chargebacks, which she doesn't have issues with chargebacks, but even if she were to have a 10% chargeback rate, that's $100, $1,000.
Yep.
So it's not really a concern for her. So it's really a matter of, hey, if this is $1,000 and you don't want to have a hard time with the chargeback process, then send them a contract.
That makes sense. So just so I understand, for example, if I have a digital product in my Stan store, that's what you're referring to, is if someone wanted to get a refund.
So if they wanted a so what I mean by a chargeback, I should have explained this. So a chargeback is when you charge the credit card and then maybe they come to you for a refund or not, but then they go to their credit card company and say, hey, this was fraud, or I didn't get what I paid for. The credit card company will reverse the charge.
Yep. I know what you're talking about, because PayPal's done that to me.
Okay. And speaking of PayPal, they're the worst.
That's what I've heard.
Will not protect service providers. You're better off using Stripe. PayPal was created for product-based businesses that ship goods. So in recent, I think it was 2020, 2021, PayPal changed, because I've done a ton of videos on this and they always do really well, because they're like, what? Why not use PayPal? Yep. PayPal does not protect service providers. They changed their terms in 2020, 2021 to say that they do protect service providers. However, they have a list of what has to happen for you to be protected. And the last thing is they call it a certain term, but what it basically is, they want you to have a document signed by the client saying that you received what you paid for and you're happy with it.
Oh,
nobody does that.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever done that. So I still tell, like, all day long, like, PayPal, you want to come after me? Come after me. Like, you do not service providers. Nobody does that. And I know nobody reads those terms. So even though they say, like, hey, we'll protect you, they don't. So do not use PayPal. Stripe, they have high fees relatively compared to other providers, but they do have a good chargeback process. And what I mean, a good they allow you to fight it. Because the thing is, you can, and this happened with the client for about 16 or 18,000. The client, she was designing websites at the time, and that's what she charged the client. The client went to PayPal. PayPal did a chargeback, and my client fought it and won. But then the client went to above PayPal straight to the credit card company. And the credit card company took that money from PayPal, and PayPal took that money from my client, even though they had already won the chargeback with PayPal.
What?
Yeah.
So they still lost the money?
Yeah.
Ay. That's crazy.
Yes. So if you are a service provider, don't use PayPal.
Yeah.
I don't accept any payments on PayPal, even when I am working with brands. I've had a couple that want to pay me in PayPal. I'm like, no, you can pay me another way. Because even not that it's going to happen with big brands, but I have seen some smaller, like, creators that work with smaller brands that have done a chargeback for it.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up. And then my last question was, you mentioned like the checkbox. That's what you're referring to, is like at the checkout in Stan store. For me, it's like I was able to add what is the agreement. Like, by checking this box, you're agreeing to whatever terms. And it's like, there are no refunds once you purchase X.
Yes.
Noted. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Okay, that is contracts. If y'all have any questions about contracts, feel free to drop them. I know I did see another. Once you have an LLC, should you be signing your contracts under the LLC or your own? Yes, great question. Once you have an LLC, you personally are no longer a part of any of those contracts. You will physically be signing your name, but you are signing on behalf of the company. You are signing as the owner of the company. So all the contracts should have the LLC name. And then in this, it depends how the signature is, but normally it's business name, LLC, signature, and below it'll have your title, like owner or CEO, business name LLC.
Nice.
You will sign your actual name, but you are not a party to the contract. The LLC is a party to the contract. You are just binding the LLC.
Mm. Great question, Nicole.
I don't think I saw any other questions, but if
Yeah.
I missed anybody's questions, feel free to drop them again. So that was contract. So we did entities, contracts, now intellectual property. This is my favorite. This is my jam. I am going to take a moment to brag because but I started out as a trademark attorney, and that's always been like what I love to do is trademarks. And last week we had new trademark rankings come out, and I was ranked number 12 out of 40,000 trademark attorneys in the United States.
Oh
So
my gosh. Congratulations. That's a huge deal.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, even with like big law attorneys, all the big firms, they aggregate everybody. And I last year I was 27, and I forgot about the rankings, but I definitely was not expecting to move up, and I did. So really exciting. I had to take my moment to brag.
That's so awesome. Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you. So IP, intellectual property. This is your most valuable asset. This is the most valuable thing that you have. Everything that you create is intellectual property. So IP is patents, trademarks, and copyrights. Patents are inventions, not something I cover. It's a whole other ball game. If you ever need a patent referral, let me know and I can get you somebody. It's just not something that I cover. Now, trademarks and copyrights, this is my jam. Trademarks. This is your brand identity. Anything that identifies your brand can be protected with a trademark. Your brand name, your logo, a slogan, a product name, a service name, your podcast name. Anything that has a unique name within your business, it can probably be protected with a trademark. If you're branding yourself with your legal name, that should still be protected with a trademark. So my law firm is Andrea Sager Law. If there is an Andrew Seeger law firm, that's trademark infringement. The Andrea Sager's law firm, that's trademark infringement. Any variation. So the thing about trademarks is it's not just the same exact name that can be infringement. It's anything similar enough to where consumers are likely to be confused as to who is who. So if there's a similar law firm out there with a similar name, it's likely that my clients would think that's me. That's trademark infringement. Now, if there was Andrea Sager, the handbag company, that's not infringement because it's not likely that my clients would think I own a handbag company.
That makes sense.
And so Delta Airline and Delta, the kitchen sink faucet company, same exact name. They both have a federal trademark. They can coexist because they're in two different industries.
Okay. I know that's a question that I feel like I've even received on my videos. So I love that you're able to answer that so simply.
Yeah. So I've tried to really master breaking this stuff down. So but trademarks are my favorite. They're really what grow the value of your brand. So think about Disney. And I know these are very high numbers and very valuable brands. Disney is the number one licensor in the world, and a license is giving somebody permission to use what you own. So as you grow your brand, other people and that's what you're giving the brands for your videos. You're giving them a license for your copyrighted content. Now, the more trademarks you have in your business, the more valuable your brand is. The more copyrights you have in your business, the more valuable your brand is. And talking about it, so Disney, they make over $50 billion per year on licensing deals. Nike, I think they do 20 billion per year on licensing deals. Wow. But talking about it on a smaller scale, like for small business owners, this can be where certifications come in. This can be where franchising comes in. This is so I have one client. She created this brand for nurses. I can talk about it. So she created this brand for nurses, really to support nurses, but it's all this like nurse themed merchandise. Well, she really created a name for this brand and so many people want it. So now there's other companies that pay her to use her trademark stuff so they can create socks, because she's not somebody that manufactures socks. She doesn't create socks. So they pay her to use her branding, her trademarks, and they create socks. And she, not only do they pay her up front for being able to use it, but she also gets royalties. So however much they make, she makes part of that.
Wow.
And she's not making millions from that, but that is where true passive income comes in.
Wow.
And one thing I've been doing a lot lately is helping create certification programs. Because a lot of people will say like, oh, yeah, here's my certification program. Come get certified with this. But it's not, like, they call it a certification program, but it's not really structured very well. But a certification program is where I see a lot of people leaving money on the table as well, because they just pay for the certification and that's it. Well, if you want to really bring in that passive income, you have them pay up front to be certified, to go teach something or do something, and then they have to pay you every year or every other year to maintain that certification.
Yep.
So Kelly, if you, and I'm totally making this up, you guys, if Kelly wanted to say, hey, I'm going to certify people on how to make UGC videos, she can do that. And she can create this whole program and basically take people through this curriculum and this structure. And at the end of it, they get certified. They're now certified, but it's on you, the brand owner, to really build up the brand. And so when people come to me like, I want to create this certification, but they don't even have a business, they don't have a brand. I'm like, okay, first step is creating the business and the brand. You have to create that brand recognition, because that's what people want.
Yep.
As you're growing the brand and it's something that other people want, that's when you can get creative. It's like, oh, cool, I can certify people. If they know I'm a great money coach, I can certify other money coaches, because after a while, the one-on-one stuff gets to be too much. You don't want to serve one-on-one anymore after a certain bit. So you can get really creative with intellectual property. So once you come up with a process, a system, a method, whatever it is, like, that is your most valuable asset. And one picture I like to paint is Nike. So if this would never happen, but if Nike had all of their merchandise in one warehouse and that warehouse burned down overnight, would Nike be out of business? Absolutely not. They would not lose any value of their brand. That is because of the name they've created for themselves. Even if they have nothing to sell, they still have a brand. They still have that brand recognition. So think about that when you're trying to really wrap your head around building a brand.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I geek out on IP.
Love that.
So trademarks, it's your brand identity. Copyrights are your content, your creative works, all the videos you create, photos, videos, blog posts, your website copy, your long form Instagram captions, all of the creative work. And there's a more thorough list in that checklist. So make sure you still go get that checklist. All that's protected with a copyright. The cool thing about copyrights, you automatically have federal protection the moment the work is created. Don't have to have a registration. Trademarks, on the other hand, you have to have a federal registration to have federal rights. And what I mean by federal, just across the United States. I often tell people your money's better spent on a trademark application than a copyright application if money is an issue, because of the rights you have once you have that the trademark registration. So let's say you post a video and somebody steals it and they go post it online. You don't want to have to sue everybody that does that. You don't want to even send a cease and desist letter for every person that does that. So if it's stealing a video, that's copyright infringement. And you may, like, if it's somebody that looks like they have money, you may want to actually do something about it. But at the very least, you want to get it removed from the internet. So all you have to do is go to whatever platform it's posted on, submit their copyright takedown form, and it'll get removed within a couple of days. You can do this for any platform. You can Google Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Etsy, Shopify, WordPress, like all the platforms. And you can Google Facebook copyright takedown, Facebook DMCA takedown. Either of those will work. DMCA is Digital Millennium Copyright Act. This was created in the early 2000s to protect these online platforms. And they have this reporting form because if they don't abide by it, they can be sued for every instance of copyright infringement that occurs on their platform. So they remove all the content because they don't want to get sued for all this stuff. This same reporting form works for trademarks, but you have to have a federal registration. So that is why your money is better spent on a trademark registration.
How interesting.
You automatically have copyright rights. You do not automatically have trademark rights. And I'll tell you time and time again, your trademark registration is worth more than a copyright registration. Typically, we definitely have clients that we are constantly filing copyrights for them, but for the most part, we're filing more trademarks.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Let me get through these questions. Should we be careful making content for gifted products, especially with no contract involved? Absolutely. You always want to have a contract, of course. But if it's gifted, I mean, it's fine. If you're building your portfolio, absolutely, I understand. But once you get past a certain point, never. I don't want to say never, because if Mercedes contacts you and they're like, hey, we'll give you a free Mercedes if you create some content, I'd be like, sign me up for that one. So I don't want to say never, but you catch my drift. But ultimately, you just want a written contract. That's what it boils down to. If you have a business but want to expand into UGC, should you get a separate LLC for that, or can you operate under one? So ultimately, it comes down to what your risk level is and what the other business is. Because the LLC protects you personally from the debts of the company. But if you have multiple businesses under one LLC, one business is now liable for the other. So if they're similar risk levels, then you may be fine keeping them under one. But if one is real estate and then you want to get into UGC, two completely different risk levels, they should be two different LLCs.
Yeah, that's a great question for asking that, because even for me, I've asked myself that same question just because, we have UGC Social, which is for mentorship. And then I have my freelance business. And so I've kept them separate, even though they kind of are in the same ballpark. But even still, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I have a higher likelihood of UGC Social having legal issue over freelance. So I've just kept mine separate, but I literally had that same question not too long ago.
And one thing to think about in your exact situation, Kelly, is there a chance that I could sell a part of this overall business one day? So if it's UGC Social, maybe that's why it should be separate, because you want to make sure all the liability has been separate for as long as possible.
That makes sense.
What should be in the what should be included in the contract regarding payment? Definitely how much, when, and how. You want to make sure that, of course, I'm sure the amount is always included, but you want to make sure you know when you're getting paid and how you're getting paid. When I always try to get as much money up front as possible, especially if they're not a reputable brand. So if they're not like a very well-known brand or they're a newer brand, I try to get as much money up front as possible, because if something goes wrong, I'm not going to go sue somebody over $500.
Yeah.
So if I can get $300 up front, and I'll know, okay, if something happens, maybe I'm out $200. Of course, you want to exhaust all the remedies available, but always try to get as much money up front. I had a big deal with Nationwide last year, and they were good about paying, but I really pushed for getting as much up front. We ended up, I think we did 50-50. But they didn't want to pay until after. And I was like, no, that's like, I don't care who you are. Like, that's just not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So even like, don't be afraid to negotiate. Like even big companies like
Yep.
Nationwide, like if they want you, like they will work with you.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And then let's see.
In the audit, do you all advise on the risk? Um, I'm not sure what you mean by the risk. So whenever we review the audit, we definitely go like we'll look to see if you have an LLC, and if you don't, I definitely give you more specifics on like why you need the LLC. And if you have multiple businesses, that's when we can kind of chat more about like, hey, do you need more than one LLC? Should you keep it under one entity? And sometimes I will say sometimes it's a matter of, okay, you're just getting started with these two things. And maybe right now it's fine keeping them the same. But as revenue grows for both, eventually you may want to separate them out. So
Mm.
one example, if I have a coaching client that starts a podcast and she starts the podcast to drive clients to her coaching business or course business, but then the podcast really starts taking off and she's getting advertisers, and now like both companies are making six figures, $1 million, whatever. You definitely want to separate them out. So sometimes it's a matter of, hey, it's fine to start these where they are in under one, but let's just keep having this conversation. That way we can make sure that we're minimizing the risk as much as possible.
Yeah, that's great. Nice. Does anyone else have any other questions? Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, this is your time. So
Yeah, it's not every day you get the opportunity to ask a lawyer any of your legal questions.
yeah, and it's honestly, I've found, which you may have experienced this as well, it's not just finding like any lawyer. I've worked with so many creators and influencers over the years that they're like, I tried to go to whoever my dad sent me to, and they have no idea how I make money. Like they don't understand my business.
Yep. That is so true. And the same thing also applies for at least my experience is who's handling my taxes when it comes to tax season is like, I want the person to understand what I do. So I'm like taking, advantage of the things that you have the right of as a business owner. So
Yeah.
yeah, it totally applies for legal and for, I would say for taxes.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. Well, if no one has any other questions, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of your time, Andrea. This was seriously so incredible. And I just know that I I'm really excited for anyone who wasn't able to join the live to watch the playback, just because I know that they're going to find a ton of value in this. And I really can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, make sure you all get that checklist.
Yes.
It really breaks down like all the little bitty things that you need in the business. And then, of course, on that last page, there's a code for the free business audit where we just dissect your whole business and tell you, hey, this is exactly what you need for this, what you need for this. So get all that. It's all free. And then, of course, I'm on TikTok, Instagram at the Legalpreneur, always putting out more educational stuff as well.
Amazing. We're getting lots of thank yous.
Thank
Thank you
you
everyone
all.
for attending. And Andrea, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. As far as this coming Saturday's training, TBD, we may skip it because we have this Wednesday training, but I'll let you guys know in the Discord. And outside of that, yeah, thank you. Oh, I will also, while you're here, before you leave, can you plug anything, whether it's your socials, anything? Like I would love for you to plug whatever it is, and I can make sure to include it in the description below as well.
Yeah, so we also have Legalpreneur the book. It is Legalpreneur, the
Mm.
Business Owner's Guide to Legally Protecting Your Business. That came out in January of this year. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's a great compilation of a lot of what we discussed here, but breaking it down into client stories, client horror stories, how it helped some clients, how, they bypass. Like I have one client story. She was on Shark Tank and she recently sold her company. But she had some IP fails and almost like made her business go under. So all that's in there. More like passive income stuff is in the book. So definitely, if you have an opportunity, get that. It's on barnesnoble.com, target.com, Amazon, of
Say
course.
the name one more time.
It's Legalpreneur, the business owner's guide to legally protecting your business. If you just Google Legalpreneur book, it'll come up.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yep.
And then anything else? I know you're on TikTok, you're under Legalpreneur, and also you're active on, is it Twitter and Instagram as well?
Instagram, not so much Twitter anymore,
Okay.
or Threads. But yeah, I'm there at the Legalpreneur, and my personal is at Andrea Sager Law.
Nice. Awesome. Well, guys, make sure to follow her. She's an incredible resource, and also definitely get the book. I'm going to be ordering that tonight. So thank you so much for plugging that. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, Andrea. I really appreciate your time, and for everyone that was able to join the live, and of course, anyone watching the recording, thank you for watching. Continue to subscribe and follow and attend these trainings every week. They're for free. We're here to make alternative education accessible to all. And yes, thank you guys so much for your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.